Hey guys, it's Jen Lefforge. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that you are here. So today we're going to be talking about something very special. As many of you know, I just returned from Disneyland Paris in France. I had a fabulous time. And as a veteran of Disneyland in California and Disney World in Florida, a lot of you have asked me to do this video where I kind of compare the three parks. So that is what I'm going to dive into today. I'm going to try to be concise and precise because there's a lot of information to share. And if you stick with me till the end of the video, I actually have a really special giveaway to share with you. So make sure you stay tuned. Okay, so let's start with my history with each of the three parks, just so you kind of know that I'm not an expert at anything in life, but I do know quite a bit about several of the Disney parks. Disneyland in California was my home resort, if you will. I was born in Huntington Beach. I went to California even after we moved away, a ton for family vacations, for trips in high school. I know that park literally like the back of my hand. Less so California Adventure, but certainly Disneyland Park itself. If you are not aware, the Disneyland Resort in California consists of two theme parks, Disneyland Park and also California Adventure. There is a downtown Disney area. There's several on-property hotels. And then one thing that's unique about Disneyland in California is there are also several good neighbor hotels that are all within walking distance of the park. If you've only been to Disney World, you're used to it being miles and miles before you can get from an off-property hotel to Disney World itself. That is not the case in California. It is a much more intimate environment. It is, however, smack dab in the middle of a very busy part of Southern California. So you have a lot of traffic, a lot of congested freeways surrounding the area. And you know, that was why Walt wanted to build Florida, because he didn't like all the hotels that had popped up and all the congestion that was around Disneyland in California, which, gosh, can you imagine if he saw it now? I mean, if he thought it was congested back then. My goodness. My parents visited Disneyland when they were young. I've been there with my grandparents. It really is a family park for us. My children love that park, and it will always be what I consider my home park. Now, we started to visit Walt Disney World in Florida about 12 years ago. We've been every year, sometimes multiple times a year since then. I went a couple times when I was a kid, but there were several years in between trips. When I first started going to Disney World, as any Disneyland veteran will tell you, you feel very disoriented. It takes a while to kind of get your bearings. But now I would really say that that also feels like home to me. I've been so often. Now, of course, at Walt Disney World, you have the Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, Epcot. It is a massive undertaking. You've also got Blizzard Beach, Typhoon Lagoon, Disney Springs. It is basically its own resort destination. So that can be a good thing and a bad thing. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. And then just a couple months ago, I got back from Disneyland Paris. And I've told a couple people, I kind of feel like Disneyland Paris was like Walt Disney World and Disneyland in California kind of mashed up together. It is also only two theme parks and downtown Disney, or as they call it, the Disney Village. You have the Disney Hollywood Studios, or Walt Disney Studios theme park, and then you have Disneyland Park. It's more similar in feeling to me to Disneyland in California, but I'd never been there before, right? So this was a completely new experience for me. It has a couple of really interesting things about it. It has more of the Walt Disney World feel because you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's in kind of a suburban area. So you're sort of in the middle of nowhere, but then you have a lot of suburban golf communities and regular homes and villages around. But it also is pretty isolated in that there aren't a lot of grocery stores or restaurants or things that you can get to that are not on Disney property. But the thing that it does have going for it is it has an international train station literally at its front gates. So for instance, if you live in England, as you know, because you're smarter than I am about this, you can get on the Eurostar and you can be from the St. Pancras station all the way, get on the Eurostar in St. Pancras and be at the Marne de Valle, I think, station, which is the Disneyland station, in 3 hours. So that makes it a very convenient destination for a lot of people that live in the UK. As far as which one do I like best, I feel like that is a little bit of asking someone to pick their favorite child. If you told me I could only visit one park for the rest of my life, I would probably say it would be Walt Disney World, just because of all of the things that it offers, and there's so many things to do. You could easily spend, I think you could easily spend 2 weeks at Walt Disney World and never go anywhere else. Just rely on Disney transportation and that would be it. But there are certain people that I think the different parks would be better for, and I want to go through that now. So let's start with if you have young kids. If you have young kids and they have never been to a big theme park destination resort before, I recommend taking them to Disneyland in California, and here's why. It is so much smaller. It is so much easier to navigate. It is much more approachable to a family who, say, maybe only wants to do 2 or 3 days of theme parks instead of maybe an entire week. You could take your young kids. You can easily walk around Disneyland and hop over to California Adventure on the same day. And for my Walt Disney World veterans, if you have nothing better to do, go look at the footprint of Disneyland Park and California Adventure. You could fit both of them combined into just the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. You're so much less exhausted there because you're just not walking as much as you are at Walt Disney World. Also, if you have reservations, for instance, at Downtown Disney and you're over at, you're riding Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and you have a reservation at the Disneyland Hotel for dinner, you can be there easily in a 15-minute walk, and that's if you're strolling. So just the fact that everything is that much smaller, I know when I had younger kids, not getting exhausted just from being transported from place to place was a really nice thing. Also, if you are a young family, cost may be more of a consideration. Depending on what part of the country you live in, you can get some great hotel deals. Obviously, airfare may be more for you. That was my point there. But you can get some great hotel deals that are in the surrounding area at Disneyland for far less than you would pay either for on property at Disneyland or even for like a value hotel at Disney World. So it can be a more cost-effective way. Also, again, because it's really easy to do it in 2 or 3 days, it could be a shorter trip. So for families with young kids, I recommend Disneyland in California first. Now, for families with older kids, or if it's, a family reunion, or you're going for a week and you have a lot of different people with a lot of different interests, certainly if you have older kids or teenagers in your party, I recommend the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. It is just so much more of a resort destination. If you're going for a week, that is going to feel so much more like an actual vacation. You're away from traffic, you're away from all of the hustle and bustle of daily life, which in California kind of surrounds you, so it's a little impossible. I suppose you could go in and stay in the Disneyland Hotel and sort of be in the Disney bubble, but nothing like the Disney bubble you can achieve when you go to Walt Disney World. And I think that's exactly what Walt wanted to achieve. Everything from golf to spas to mini golf to the water parks to these resort pools, all of these types of amenities really make it a full-on family vacation destination. So if you have a week or more to be on vacation, if you have older kids, if you have a large party with lots of different interests, I'm going to send you to Walt Disney World in Florida. And then lastly, who do I recommend Disneyland Paris to? Oh my goodness. Well, of course, anyone in the UK, Disneyland Paris is a far more convenient option for you, especially if you've not been to the Disney parks before. A 3-hour train ride. I know the flights are very inexpensive between London and France. It is lovely. It is like, I tried to tell people, it is kind of like if they took, it reminded me more of Disneyland than it did Disney World, especially some of the landscaping is so beautiful. It's very lush, it's very well done, but then there's also this sort of avant-garde feel to it. And some of the music, the parade music in particular, I think it's called Stars on Parade, it's just got this little bit of almost funkiness to it that you don't find in Florida or California. You see art installations that are not Disney related at all, and just the overall feel of it, this is going to sound ridiculous, it feels very European. Now here's who I I don't recommend trying to go to Disneyland Paris if you're visiting Paris. A lot of people think that Disneyland Paris and Paris are very close together. They're not. It is a train journey. It's not that you can't get there. You easily could, but it's not convenient to be staying in Paris, in my view, and to visit Disneyland Paris. So if that was something you wanted to do as part of a Paris vacation, I would definitely recommend staying in Paris for your time there and then moving hotels. I'll put a link right here to the resort review that I did of where I stayed out at Disneyland Paris. I tried to tour Paris. Well, I did tour Paris. Staying at that hotel was not super convenient, and quite honestly, it kind of stressed me out a little bit. So if I do it again, and I hope that I will, I would probably do Paris as one part and then Disneyland Paris as its own separate piece. You do just have the 2 theme parks and the Disney Village area. So again, it's a little bit more approachable if you have younger kids. Certainly, if you're planning a European vacation anyway, I would definitely recommend doing it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a designated trip over just to do that. I mean, I think as Americans, we sometimes take for granted how close everything is in Europe. Don't go over there and just do Disneyland Paris. Again, this is all my opinion, so no hate mail, please. But I think that if you're gonna go to Disneyland Paris, go to Paris, spend some time in France, maybe consider even going to some neighboring countries. There is so much you could easily explore, even in like a week to 10 days, that would make that a true destination vacation. So if you want a little bit of Disney as part of a larger European vacation, I definitely recommend Disneyland Paris. I did find it to be slightly less organized than either of the American parks, both in layout and in customer service, in things like lines, in things like rides being broken down. So I think you do have to walk into Disneyland Paris with appropriate expectations. Don't expect the same level of customer service that you get in Florida or California. I walked in knowing that. I had some very dear friends who go frequently who kind of prepared me for what to expect. So I knew that going in. It was a little shocking when I had to wait 30 minutes for, you know, a coffee when the line really didn't look that long. It's just a different way of doing things. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means walk in with appropriate expectations. So Americans, if you go to Disneyland Paris, please walk in understanding that the pace is different and it is not going to be exactly like it is at home. My other recommendation, and this is for anyone who considers one park kind of their home park, get an actual map ahead of time and study it. It can be very disorienting, and you head in one direction and you're sure you know where you're going to go, and you get there and you're like, why is this land? I thought this was Fantasyland, and it isn't at all. So definitely get a map ahead of time and take a look at that. And I think you'll find that to be incredibly helpful. Of course, we have YouTube now, right? So you can watch all these great videos. Oh, but Disneyland Paris, it was really nothing like it. And I kept saying in the vlogs, and again, I'll put a link to my playlist here, I felt like Alice through the looking glass. Like things were familiar and yet not familiar at all. And personally, I loved that feeling. The on-property hotels at Disneyland Paris typically include your park ticket. I did not realize that. So kind of be careful when you're booking packages there. Expedia is a great way to book your packages there. That's what I did. You can work with a travel agent and just make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you consider staying off property. I was very happy with my choice to stay off property, but other people at another time of the year, you may find much better deals through an American travel agent with a bundle where your park tickets are included. And a little note on that, park tickets are less expensive at Disneyland Paris than they are at Walt Disney World or California. So that's something for you to consider. So if you have young kids, go to Disneyland in California. If you have a little bit older kids, a week vacation, traveling with a large party, go to Walt Disney World in Florida. As part of an overall European vacation, if you want a little bit of Disney infused in there, definitely go to Disneyland Paris. The reality is, I've only been to 3 of the Disney theme parks and I still have more to do. Okay, now on to our giveaway. So if any of you follow Bart Scott, Bart has a podcast, Bart has a YouTube channel, he has written a couple of different books, but I do want to talk about his amazing children's book, Cats of the Castle. It just celebrated its 2-year anniversary. This is my copy right here. This is a fabulous book for intermediate readers, but also to be read aloud. That is my favorite way to read this book. If you are planning to go to Disneyland, if you love Disneyland, and even if you're just an enthusiast about all things Disney, and especially about the cats that actually do live at Disneyland in Southern California, I definitely recommend picking up this book. I will put a link below to how you can buy a copy for yourself, and one of you is going to win not only a copy of the book, but Bart has also offered to include an original signed drawing to whoever wins this copy of the book. So all I need you to do to enter to win is put down for me in the comments below, which park would you visit? Would you visit Disneyland Paris? Would you visit Walt Disney World in Florida? Or would you visit Disneyland in California for your next Disney vacation? And also make sure that you are subscribed and that you have liked this video. You will not be qualified to win unless you are subscribed and unless I can see that you are subscribed. So if you're not sure if that's public or not, go ahead and put your name below and I will check for you and let you know if I can see you and if you would be eligible to win. So congratulations to whoever ends up winning this. I'll announce my winner. We'll run this for exactly 1 week from today, and I'll put the date that runs through right here so you guys can see it. Thank you so much for watching today. As always, I hope that you're having a happy, joyful life, that whether you're planning your next Disney vacation or just dreaming about it, that this has been helpful for you today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.